Dr. Robert Beringer had been a practicing hypnotherapist for over 18 years, and today's appointments initially seemed like any other day's schedule. Some new clients and some returns. One of the scheduled appointments had been reserved by one such newbie, a man named Mr. Bratton Severin. Robert's pretty young blonde receptionist, Katrine, told him the purpose of the visit was for repressed memory recovery. Other than that, she had no idea as to why this new client had booked time. That was okay. Katrine had snagged her job in this practice not so much as for her office skills as for her good looks. She was hot as a pistol, had flirted unabashedly with him during the interview and incessantly during the last few months of her employment. Even though he was married, albeit unhappily, the new session was slated as the last one at day's end on Friday. Prior to that final Friday meeting, the other ones had been the run-of-the-mill treatments for the cessation of tobacco, alcohol, drug addiction, sexual dysfunction, weight control, dieting, mood and relaxation control, insomnia, so on and so forth. Katrine would lead each patient into his work area, and as much as he enjoyed watching her come into the room, he'd be lying if he didn't confess to savouring the view of her firm, well-shaped derriere when exiting. Dr. Beringer had often fantasised about what it would be like to run off to some faraway tropical paradise with his sexy assistant, and leave the woman he'd married but no longer loved behind. A few minutes after the penultimate patient had completed treatment, Katrine knocked softly, opened his closed door, and walked an early 30s-something-looking man into the practitioner's workspace before announcing, "This is Mr. Severin, Doctor," then leaving. "Mr. Severin, it's a pleasure to make your acquaintance." With a nonchalant gesture of his hand, it was indicated that the new client should sit in the chair directly in front of the therapist. "Likewise, I'm sure. And please just call me Bratton," Severin replied as he took the suggested seat in position. "Now, Bratton, what may I help you with?" The man shifted nervously in his chair as he explained why he was here. "I have an online account that I can no longer log into because I forgot the password. I've tried signing in a few times using several different passwords I frequently use for other accounts, but none of them worked. Now I've almost reached the limit of allowed attempts to access it, and the way the account is set up is that after a number of failed tries, it will lock it down permanently. I only have one more try. Do you think you can help me remember through hypnosis?" "It's possible," the therapist responded. "Well, at this point, I'll try anything. Can you tell me more about the account? What type of account? What's it used for? Or what's in it? When was the last time you signed into it? Anything you recall from when you last logged in?" The doctor noticed several beads of perspiration had now formed along the younger man's brow. Bratton's hands were resting on his lap with all fingers interlocked, except the index fingers, which he agitatedly tapped together. "I opened it around a dozen years ago. I only used it a few times, so I believe the last time I accessed it was about a decade or more ago. And I think I logged in from my office at a company I used to work for several jobs ago." "Can you tell me anything else?" "I'd really rather not. Let's just consider it a personal matter, and that's all I care to say about it. Look, I'm willing to pay you to try and hypnotise me to make me remember, but other than what I just told you, I'm not comfortable saying anything more right now. Can you do that?" Now, with so little to go by, it may not be possible to help you. Suppressed or repressed memory retrieval in itself is difficult. The fewer details we have to go on, the more it becomes like looking for a needle in a haystack. Can't you tell me anything else, no matter how problematic or even embarrassing that it may be? "No, I can't," the patient declared emphatically. "Please, just try to help me." The hypnotist rationalised that since the man had booked the session, and if he expected to be paid for it, then he had no choice but to try and abide by his client's terms and conditions. After all, Beringer wasn't here to administer his service just for fun. Even if the scenery Katrine provided each workday was so easy on the eyes, All things considered, it was Severin's money, and if this was how he wished to gamble it, that was up to him. And anyway, money was money. The room where the doctor's inner office was located had no windows, and probably at one time been simply a large storage area in the building where he rented space. Having no windows provided the advantage of keeping out external light and sound that could interfere with the hypnotic process. In fact, the only source of light during a session came from 2 incandescent bulbs overhead, which could be dimmed via a switch Robert could control from his desk, and that he now used to lower the lighting level to near darkness. All right, just understand there are no guarantees that with the limited amount of information you've provided that we'll get what you're trying to obtain. I understand. Are you comfortable? Guess I'm as comfortable as I'll ever be under the circumstances. Good. Now I want you to breathe deeply and relax. Let go of any tension or stress you may feel. Keep breathing deeply and then slowly close your eyes. The hypnotherapist ran through the usual steps employed to bypass the conscious mind in order to make contact with the subconscious. Big breaths, gradual relaxation, slowly assisting the subject in reaching a mental state somewhere between deep sleep and being awake, then making strategic suggestions to be planted deep in their subconscious. Once this was achieved, some may get what you came to the therapy session to get, or you just may not. No guarantees. Mr. Bratton Severin had now been induced into what some called the trance state. Bratton, I want you to see yourself in the office of the company you work for when you last logged into the account we'll now recover the password for. Tell me what you see around you. I see a desk in front of me. What's on the desk? There's a computer. The logo on it says that it's a Dell. It's connected to a mouse, a keyboard, and a bulky black and white monitor. Is the computer switched on? The patient fumbled the empty air in front of him with his right hand for a moment before returning it to his lap, and then sat still in silence. After nearly a wordless minute of quiet stillness, Robert asked again, Is it on now? It's still booting and warming up. Good, let it take all the time it needs. In the meanwhile, Bratton, I want you to listen to the sound of my voice and only the sound of my voice. Do you understand? Yes, I understand. Bratton, the suggestions I'm about to make, I want you to listen to very carefully. Then do what I suggest. Tell me what you will do. I will listen to your voice, only your voice, and I will do as you suggest. Yes, while we wait for the computer in front of you to be ready so you'll be able to sign into the account you've been trying to access, we will talk and you will honestly answer every question I ask. Do you agree? I will listen to your questions, then I will honestly answer each one. Bratton, what is the name of the company that owned the office, desk and computer you now see in front of you? Smithfield and Associates. It was Smithfield and Associates Incorporated. What was your job there, Bratton? I was in the accounting department and overseeing asset investment for the corporation. You've been honest with me, so I want to be honest with you. The only way I'll be able to help you is if you tell me more about the account you fear you'll be blocked from. You want to solve this problem, so you will tell me everything I command you to tell me, Bratton. The air hung heavy for a few moments, until Severin finally replied, I will tell you. Back in 2009, I had invested $2,000 through open source software in a then newly developed cryptocurrency known as Bitcoin. Since that initial investment, the value of Bitcoin has skyrocketed. The amount of Bitcoin I bought back then would be valued today at nearly $1 billion in the current market. I never told anyone about the purchase because for 2 reasons. 1, most people would have thought it was an unsound investment and that I was a fool for buying into it, and 2, it wasn't my money to invest. Whose money was it, Bratton? The money belonged to the company, Smithfield and Associates. I'd embezzled it, but planned to pay it back to them when I cashed in on the investment. Due to unforeseen events that occurred in the years thereafter, and mainly because I was so incredibly embarrassed and ashamed of what I'd done, I put the investment at the back of my mind and pretty much forgot about the cryptocurrency. It was only after hearing a story on the news about Bitcoin that I began to remember I still held an investment. Is your computer ready to use now? Yes, I can see that the computer is ready. Bratton, I want you to use that computer to find a search engine to browse the internet. Move your mouse so the cursor is over the icon for that application, then click to open it. Now in the search bar, you must type in each letter, number, or symbol of the site's IP address where your Bitcoin is held. You will strike each key slowly, and as you do, you will say the name of each one out loud that you've struck. This is so you'll be able to imprint that information from your subconscious to your conscious mind and then retrieve it, unless I instruct you otherwise when you awake. Tell me that you understand this and what you'll do when I command you, Bratton. I understand you have commanded me to use a browser, and as I type the web address, I will say out loud each key I strike. I command you to begin, Bratton. Using only his right hand, he slid it forward in front of him as he moved the imaginary mouse across the imaginary desktop. Then, with both hands held out in the air before him, his fingers began to move about as if typing on a keyboard. And he said, https://www.bitcoin.com. As the man spoke, Dr. Beringer jotted down each letter on the yellow legal pad on his desk. After transcribing the final M, he suggested, "Now, Bratton, I want you to hit the Enter key and go to the login page of the site." "Enter," Mr. Severin said as he touched the Enter key and spoke its name out loud as commanded. "Are you at the login page as I commanded you to do?" "Yes, I have done as you commanded. I'm at the login area." Move the cursor of your mouse to the place where you'll type in your username. Then type each letter, number, or symbol of that name and slowly say out loud what you're typing. I command you to do that now. He relayed the following as his fingertips typed away on the imaginary keyboard that only he could see in his mind. SMITHFIELD_SLAVE. Enter. As Robert carefully jotted down this information. Now move the cursor of your mouse to the place where you'll type in your password. Then slowly say out loud each letter, number, or symbol of what you're typing. You must do what I tell you to do. I command you. With hands and fingers moving over imaginary objects, the hypnotized man whispered loud enough so Robert could hear and transcribe 20NEREVES09. Oh my God, the doctor thought, soon after the realization had struck him. The password he's been trying to remember is a broken combination of the year he opened the account and his surname spelled backward. As far as password strength is concerned, you didn't have to be Bill Gates or Steve Jobs to know he may as well have just used PASSWORD when it came to keeping any hacker worth his weight in data bytes from deciphering it. Dr. Robert Beringer tore the page from the pad with the man's noted site address, username, password, and folded it together before sliding the paper into a desk drawer, and said, "Very good. Bratton, now close the browser, shut down your computer, and listen very closely to what I'm about to say. For the last time during that session, Bratton Severin went through the hand motions of doing what he was told as he intently listened to the doctor's instructions. Bratton, I'm about to bring you out of your deep, deep sleep, but before I can, you must do the following. 1. You must forget every word that either you or I have spoken while you've been under hypnosis. 2. You must accept and believe what I tell you upon awaking. 3. You will not remember you were ever here. Once you step out the door of this building's lobby, you'll have no recollection of me, my assistant, this office, the building, or in fact of ever scheduling this appointment. Tell me you will obey that command, Bratton. I will obey your commands. All right. When I count to 3, you will awaken, relaxed, refreshed, and with no memory of anything that transpired while you were under hypnosis. 1, 2, 3. With a sudden startled movement, Mr. Bratton Severin lifted open the lids of his eyes and stared in momentary confusion around the office he was in, before regaining composure and asking, "Any luck, Doc?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Severin. Based solely upon the limited information you were able to provide, we were unable to come up with anything." "Well, I knew it was a gamble, but at least we tried, and I do feel more rested and relaxed than I have in a while. I know I should have asked your assistant when I booked this appointment if you accepted credit card payments, but that's all I came with today. I hope that's okay." As he was speaking, Robert had hit the button on his desktop to let Katrine silently know the meeting was over and he'd like her to walk the patient out. When she entered, the doctor said, "Katrine, I was unable to help Mr. Severin, so I won't bill him for my time today, and no need to book a follow-up session, because I don't believe we'll ever get any further in this matter. And please escort Mr. Severin to the lobby door and be sure to see he gets out onto the street so he can go home and just forget about today. Then, Katrine, come back upstairs and meet me in my office so we can wrap up the week." There was a hardly hidden look of surprise on her pretty face after the doctor's last remark, and as Bratton Severin protested in vain, No, Dr. Beringer, I insist on paying you. I agreed that this was a far-flung scheme, and I did take up nearly an hour of your time." "No, Mr. Severin? Please, just call me Bratton." "Bratton, I just wouldn't feel right taking anyone's money when I haven't provided something of substance that was requested of me. Please, just forget about it." "I will just forget about it," Bratton said as he rose slowly from where he'd been sitting. After Katrine had departed temporarily with his last patient, he returned to his desk, took the sheet of paper with the site, address, username and password from its drawer, opened up his laptop and then surfed the web over to the Bitcoin site. There the doctor entered Bratton Severin's username and password. In an instant, all of Severin's account details were displayed on the screen. It was now currently valued at over $1.7 billion, and Robert was able to effortlessly trade it for a discounted even $1 billion before Katrine had returned. There was no feeling of remorse for what he'd just done, since his patient had stolen the money, thus didn't deserve to get it back, and since it must have been so small an amount for the corporation, they either didn't notice it and or never bothered to investigate, much less than prosecute the guilty thief. The doctor was comfortable in making that money his. Well, not just his, but we'll get to that in a moment. It was a win-win situation as far as he was concerned. Next, he linked a hidden offshore account he maintained in the Cayman Islands to Bratton's Bitcoin account by inputting the account and routing numbers. This was an account which he maintained for directing funds behind the back of his wife he'd come to despise, so that when their inevitable divorce occurred, and it was sure to happen if they remained together much longer, he could shield the bulk of his hard-earned assets. Bobby Beringer was nobody's fool. By the time the lovely lady sharing his workdays returned, he had not only transferred the cool billion, but also all the funds in the joint checking saving accounts he shared with his wife. Verified those transfers, deleted the other embezzler's Bitcoin account, wiped clean his browsing history and smiled brightly at her as she re-entered his office. "Katrine, I'm sure you own a bikini, right?" Looking at her boss in confusion, she shook her head slowly in a sign of affirmation as a rosy blush spread across her cheeks, and said, "Yes." "Is it one of those teeny tiny little ones, Katrine?" "Actually, it's a micro bikini." "And what colour is it?" "It's pink." "Is it hot pink?" Hot pink, I guess." "Well, have you ever been to French Polynesia?" "French Polynesia? Well, no. Where in Polynesia?" "Tahiti would be a good place to begin with, for example." "No, I've never gone to Tahiti." "Well, would you like to go to Tahiti?" "Tahiti? You mean with you? When?" she asked, sharing a coy smile with the co-worker she'd been crushing on since the day he interviewed her. "Tonight, Katrine. I want you to book 2 one-way tickets departing for Tahiti tonight. Let me know what time the flight leaves and then go home, grab that hot pink micro bikini, throw it in a bag with any other things you may need to survive for the next day or two. We'll buy whatever else we need once we get there, and then meet me at the airport, okay?" "Okay, I'm on it. But what about your wife? What are you going to do about her?" "Once we're there, I plan to send her a text message from a burner phone to tell her I've been abducted by extraterrestrial aliens who have absconded with me in their silvery star cruiser to a galaxy far, far away. Oh, and Katrine, please promise me we'll never speak of my wife again. She's cheated on me, lied, and made my life a living hell since the day after our honeymoon. From this moment forth, we'll only talk about you and me from now on. Till death do us part. Is that okay with you?" Katrine would not have been the first, nor should she be the last person to deduce that when you desire something strongly enough, with all your heart and soul, life will conspire in assisting your efforts to help you to get what you need. "Okay," the young woman breathlessly sighed as she took his hand in hers to give it a tight little squeeze, while she held his gaze with her own. "I agree to accept your offer till death do us part." After their flight had landed in French Polynesia, Robert and Katrine took a limo from the far international airport to a location where they could rent one of those cute little tropical bungalows built atop stilts upon the water of the Pacific Ocean that surrounded the 118 islands and atolls that constituted what is known as French Polynesia. You know, the kind with a thatched roof and windows all around, so someone staying there always had an eyeful of the island's natural and bountiful beauty. Now here's an interesting fact. The first over-water bungalows in the entire world were constructed in Tahiti. For nearly a month, the recently united couple spent their days basking in the sun, Katrine in her hot pink micro bikini and Robert in a pair of cut-off jeans, except for the one time they went skinny dipping at a nude beach. Snorkeling, scuba diving, savouring fine foods and champagnes, and endless shopping trips together. Because Tahiti was rather expensive, they were surrounded by an upscale, affluent crowd of jet-setters. But with the billion Dr. Beringer had taken from Mr. Bratton Severin's Bitcoin account, as well as the funds he had drained from the joint accounts he had shared with his wife, money was not an issue, and he had even added Katrine as a co-holder, so she too would have access to his Cayman bank, where it was stashed. He trusted her like his own shadow, with not only his heart, but with every possession he owned. Love was love, and life was good with his new, young girlfriend. Those were the activities that pretty much summed up the entirety of their days, all except, that is, for just one day. On that day, she told him, with a wanton twinkle sparkling in her drop-dead gorgeous eyes, she wanted to go shopping on her own, so she could buy him a special present. He of course consented, told her to take as long as she needed, and secretly hoped she was going on some kind of lingerie shopping spree. Robert even had arranged for a limo to take her around to wherever the woman needed to go. Coincidentally, it would be the last day the two would be together. Katrine instructed her chauffeur to take her to one of the island's luxury hotels and wait outside for her. Once inside the lobby, she scanned the resplendent room and spotted Mr. Bratton Severin. The two rushed into each other's arms. "I've missed you so much, darling," she whispered as they embraced. "So much, baby." "Katrine, you don't know how much I missed you too. As soon as I got your call, I grabbed the first flight available and spent the entire time aboard fantasizing about all the things we'd do in bed once we could again, and I can't wait to get you out of these clothes." "I don't want to wait much longer either, Bratton, but we need to take care of what we need to do first. Honey, do you have it?" "I know," he said, reaching into his pocket to withdraw a small vial that he placed in her hand. "Once we do what we have to do, we'll have all the time in the world. I know you're the one that has to carry this out, but I wish I could be there to help when you do it. You still want to do it, right?" "For me, this is going to be just desserts. I want to stick that sexist pig so bad it's not funny. The way he was constantly ogling me during work and then always treating me like I'm some dumb blonde bimbo made me sick. Not to mention the things I had to do with him to keep him busy once we got here. I don't even want to think about that. But we needed him to get the money and get it out of the country. I'm just so sorry it took so long for him to share his offshore account information with you. And no need to inject him, by the way. It's something called botulinum, and you simply add a drop or two in a drink or on his food. It works fast and it'll appear organic, like a nasty case of extreme food poisoning." Severin and Katrine shared a quick parting kiss before she returned to the limousine and went shopping. The last stop before returning that evening to the awaiting Robert, she used the limo's car phone to order a cold seafood platter from one of the island's many gourmet shops. Along the short trip back to the bungalow, she dripped a single drop of the neurotoxin on each of the oysters on the half shell, taking special care not to touch them. You see, Katrine was allergic to shellfish. Walking through the door of their thatched roof lodgings atop the waters, she announced, "Honey, I'm home, and sweetheart, do I ever have a surprise for you?"